Thank you for watching this video of the Cal Grant overview portion of the regional training. In California, we have two financial aid applications, the California Dream Act application, or CADA, and the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, or FAFSA. Students submit one of these applications to be considered for financial aid. Please remember that students will only complete one or the other, not both. There are two deadlines when it comes to Cal Grant awarding. The first is the Cal Grant priority filing deadline of March 2nd. This deadline ensures that all students, high school, college, and returning adult college students, can be processed for all award types and award cycles. We previously referred to the September 2nd deadline as the Community College Competitive Award deadline. Now, the September 2nd deadline is much more significant for a huge pool of potential Cal Grant awardees. The new Cal Grant expansion for California community college students is a significant change, making the September 2nd deadline incredibly important for those students who did not initially receive a Cal Grant out of high school. California community college students may now be awarded a Cal Grant A or B Entitlement Award by applying prior to the September 2nd deadline. Additionally, students receiving an award at a community college remain eligible to continue receiving their Cal Grant after they transfer to a CSU or UC. Students transferring to a private institution may be considered for a Transfer Entitlement or Competitive Cal Grant Award. The Cal Grant B for Foster Youth Award maintains the September 2nd deadline to apply, and those students are still considered to be entitlement applicants. As mentioned on the previous slide, March 2nd is the priority deadline for the Cal Grant, but for students who miss this deadline, they may still be eligible for aid. Remember that the Commission has a second Cal Grant award cycle, the September 2nd award cycle, specifically for students attending a California community college. Also, keep in mind that March 2nd and September 2nd are both for Cal Grant deadlines. Other types of financial aid are still available, so students should apply regardless. However, it is crucial that students confirm the individual deadlines for each type of aid for which they are applying, as well as college deadlines. FAFSA filers can still qualify for federal aid, such as Pell Grant and Work Study, some types of campus aid and scholarships, and California Dream Act filers can still qualify for campus aid, such as the California Promise Grant and some scholarships. There are various GPA types that students can submit for Cal Grant consideration. In order to be considered for the High School Entitlement Cal Grant, current high school seniors and students who graduated from high school the year prior will need to have their high school GPAs submitted. The exception to this are students who are eligible for the Cal Grant B for foster youth, whose applications do not need to meet the March 2nd deadline, but they do need to have their high school GPA submitted for consideration. Colleges can submit a high school GPA if they obtain high school transcripts and the student is within 1 year of high school graduation. For those students who attend a community college with at least 16 units but no more than 23 units, they must have their community college submit their GPA, if their community college does reestablish GPAs. A reestablished GPA will allow eligible students to receive a competitive Cal Grant B award. A student with fewer than 16 units must go back to their high school and request that his or her GPA be submitted. The high school can submit the GPA electronically or use the GPA verification form. This next section will cover general eligibility requirements for Cal Grant consideration. In order for a student to establish California residency, they must have been continuously present in California for 1 year and 1 day, and they must intend on making California their permanent residency by establishing legal ties to California. The Commission makes the initial determination based on what the student lists on their financial aid application, but it is up to institutions to make the final residency determination. Students who do not meet the citizenship requirement are still eligible for Cal Grant if they meet the exemption for non-resident tuition, which has been recently extended. These requirements are discussed in more detail during the DREAM Act portion of the regional trainings. Incarcerated students are not eligible for Cal Grant benefits. However, a student can apply for a Cal Grant while incarcerated and can accept and receive the award if they will be released from law enforcement custody before the start of the semester in which they have been awarded. The Commission follows Federal Title IV SAP requirements, which stipulates that institutions' SAP policies must include these elements: a qualitative component, such as GPA, a quantitative component for PACE, maximum time frame, 150% of normal program length, an incremental measurement, which is how often is SAP checked, an appeal process, and procedures for reestablishing SAP eligibility. And that means schools must check the student's SAP before dispersing funds to them. Here is a sample institutional satisfactory academic progress policy. Students must obtain a GPA of 2.0 or higher and successfully complete at least 75% of their units attempted. The SAP measurement is determined at the end of each term, and students who do not meet SAP will be placed on financial aid warning for the following semester and can receive financial aid. Students who fail to meet SAP during the warning term will be placed on financial aid suspension and will not receive financial aid. If a student has earned a bachelor degree, then they are ineligible for a Cal Grant award unless they are in a teaching credential program. Students who are enrolled in a mandatory 5-year program may also be eligible for a 5th-year Cal Grant. Students are encouraged to access the G42 5th-year benefits application form or the G44 Teaching Credential Program application form to see if their school is eligible for a 5th-year extension. A consortium agreement is a contractual agreement between colleges or universities which recognizes the student is registered at each school for financial aid purposes. It specifies which institution will have financial aid responsibility and allows eligibility based on combined units across affiliated campuses. This is typical when your school has a study abroad program. A consortium agreement can affect the amount of Cal Grant a student is eligible for based on their enrolled units. For more information, please refer to the Federal Student Financial Aid Handbook and ensure your school has the necessary policies and procedures to address consortium agreements. Distance learning is the education for students who may not always be at a campus's physical location. Cal Grant payments are allowed if all of the following are true. The campus providing the education is located in California, the student is a California resident, and all other Cal Grant eligibility requirements are met. Students, new and renewal, must meet the minimum financial need calculation each year to receive Cal Grant. The Commission offers preliminary awards based on the unmet need derived from the cost of attendance of the school that the student claims as the College of Attendance, and the EFC derived from the FAFSA or DREAM Act application. The difference between cost of attendance and EFC is the unmet financial need. However, if institutions need to recalculate need, they should use the Federal Financial Need methodology when calculating this figure. The student expense budget is adjusted annually using the California Consumer Price Index, and it includes standardized allowances for food, housing, books, supplies, transportation, and personal miscellaneous expenses based on a 9-month academic year. Actual campus budget information is provided by the institutions on web grants or on a college cost estimate form and will be used for Cal Grant awarding. The 2022-2023 Cal Grant income and asset ceilings were calculated using the prescribed methodology from the 2006-2007 Student Expenses and Resources Survey, adjusted for 13 years of inflation or deflation. The ceilings for the 2022-2023 academic year were released in August of 2021. California Education Code states that the maximum household income and asset ceilings applicable for a renewing recipient be the higher of either the adjusted ceilings for the year or the ceilings at the time of the renewing recipient's initial Cal Grant award. The 22-23 income and asset ceilings will be the same for new and renewal Cal Grant students. As a requirement, a student's total family income must be below the ceiling for their family size. If the student is a dependent student, only their parents' income and assets are compared to the ceiling. If the student is deemed independent, then only their own income and their spouse, if married, is compared. The ceilings are also broken down by family size and the different grant types, Cal Grant A, B, and C. While Cal Grant disbursement guidelines typically follow federal student aid policies, there are exceptions. For Cal Grant purposes, summer is always a trailer, and therefore Cal Grant term payments made in an award year must correspond to the FAFSA or ICER for the same award year. If your summer term starts prior to July 1st, you will pull from the previous year applications. In this next section, we will go over the different award cycles and types. There are two types of Cal Grant award cycles, entitlement and competitive. While the actual Cal Grant itself is the same, that is, an entitlement Cal Grant B pays the same as a competitive Cal Grant B, the student cohort being considered for the award is different. Here's the only thing you need to remember. Entitlement Cal Grants are guaranteed for students who meet the eligibility requirements. Competitive Cal Grants are also great, but much more difficult to get. Why are entitlement Cal Grants easier to get? Basically, if a student meets the requirements, they are entitled to receive a Cal Grant. The state does not put a limit on the number of entitlement Cal Grants which can be awarded or the dollar amount that can be dispersed to students meeting the basic eligibility requirements. Previously, if high school seniors and prior year graduates, as well as transfer students, meet the requirements, they are entitled to a Cal Grant. However, starting in the 2021-2022 academic year, there is now a Community College Entitlement Cal Grant that allows community college students who apply by September 2nd to be processed for an entitlement award. I will go over more about the Community College Entitlement Cal Grant in a few slides. As a result of this new entitlement award, it is now greatly reducing the number of competitive awards. So what is a competitive award? This award is a Cal Grant that is awarded based on a scoring matrix. Unlike entitlement awards, competitive awards are limited. Generally speaking, any student who is not awarded a Cal Grant entitlement will be considered for a Cal Grant competitive award. Whereas the competitive cycle used to be processed for both the March 2nd and September 2nd deadlines, moving forward, competitive students will only be considered if they apply by March 2nd. Let's talk more about the Entitlement Cal Grant Awards. As mentioned in the previous slides, students who are eligible for the High School Entitlement Cal Grant must be a current senior or last year's graduate. They must apply with the FAFSA or DREAM Act application by the March 2nd deadline and must submit a high school GPA also by the March 2nd deadline. As mentioned in the previous slides, changes in the state budget allowed for the expansion of the Community College Entitlement Cal Grant, which removed barriers to the Cal Grant entitlements based on age and time out of high school for California community college students. Students must apply with the FAFSA or DREAM Act application by the September 2nd deadline and must submit a GPA by the September 2nd deadline. Students who are currently attending a community college can submit a community college GPA at least a 2.4 on a 4.0 scale for Cal Grant A, and at least a 2.0 on a 4.0 scale for the Cal Grant B, or they can re-establish their GPA by completing at least 16 units of credit at the community college with at least a 2.0 GPA as defined by CSAC regulations. In a special circumstance in which a high school senior missed the March 2nd deadline, they can still qualify for the Community College Entitlement Cal Grant by submitting their high school GPA, which will still need to meet the minimum requirements of the High School Entitlement Cal Grant, 3.0 for Cal Grant A and 2.0 for Cal Grant B. Students who are eligible for the Cal Grant B for foster youth application do not need to meet the March 2nd deadline, but they do need to have their high school GPA submitted for consideration. In web grants, you can use the foster youth verification screen to confirm foster youth status for Cal Grant B awardees. However, this does not confirm Chafee applicants, and it is a view-only screen. Another option to view foster youth students is to customize a roster to capture this population of students at a specific institution. As you can see, the same B-FY designation assigned under the program code column will appear on the online roster. 2019-2020 renewal students who had exhausted eligibility were automatically renewed with 400% additional eligibility. Using the student history screen, you will see the eligibility may show above the normal 400% that we see traditionally with our other Cal Grant awardees. The Transfer Entitlement Award is for students transferring from a California community college to a bachelor degree granting institution who meet these additional requirements. Option A would be the student graduated from a high school or equivalent and was a California resident at the time of high school graduation. Option B is if the student did not graduate but was a California resident on the 18th birthday. They must also have a completed FAFSA or DREAM Act application filed by the March 2nd deadline, be under the age of 28 on December 31st of the award year, transfer from a California community college to the BDGI in the year awarded. Their income and assets must be within the ceilings and sufficient financial need, and have a California community college GPA of 2.4 or higher. Schools indicate whether an E2 awardee is a new transfer eligible or a continuing student ineligible. The at least one payment rule does not apply to renewal E2s. Spring and summer transfers are eligible as early admits provided the school records reflect special early admit, although students may only be paid as an E2 in the academic year they are awarded the transfer entitlement grant. As we go through these scenarios, keep in mind that E2 awardees are students who do not already possess a Cal Grant. If a student doesn't receive a Cal Grant as a high school entitlement applicant, they have a second shot to get a transfer entitlement award if they take the community college to university pathway. A student may transfer to a bachelor degree granting institution in any term, fall, winter, or spring, of the regular academic year in which they were awarded the E2 award, as long as they were enrolled at a California community college for any term in the prior academic year. This situation on the slide is a special scenario specific to early admissions offered by the college. For audit purposes, the school must indicate on school records that the student is an early admit. The student will not receive a payment in the academic year 2019-2020, but is eligible for E2 payment beginning 2020-2021. There are many unique scenarios to consider for transfer entitlement students. Here we're going to see if Wendy is eligible for a transfer entitlement Cal Grant in each of these scenarios. For the first one, Wendy attended UC Davis in 2018-2019, but changed her mind and decided to attend a nearby community college for the 1920 year. In 2021, she plans on transferring to a CSU. Is Wendy eligible for a transfer entitlement Cal Grant? And the answer is yes, because she will be considered a new transfer and will be eligible at the CSU campus. The next situation is Wendy attended UC Davis in 1819, but changed her mind and decided to attend a nearby community college for the 1920 year. Then, in 2021, she plans on transferring to a UC. Is Wendy eligible for the transfer entitlement Cal Grant? And the answer is, it depends on the UC. If she transfers back to UC Davis, then she is considered a returning student and is not eligible for an E2 award. If she transfers to another UC and that school deems her as a new transfer, then she can receive the E2 award. The next situation is Wendy attended a community college for both fall and spring of 1819 and plans on transferring in fall of the 1920 year. Is Wendy eligible for the transfer entitlement Cal Grant? The answer is yes. Then, the next situation would be Wendy attended a community college for fall of 1819 and plans on transferring in spring of the 1920 year. Is Wendy eligible? Yes, she is eligible for this situation. Next, Wendy attended a community college for fall 1819 and plans on taking some time off before transferring in fall of the 2021 academic year. Is Wendy eligible for a transfer entitlement Cal Grant? For this situation, the answer is no, she is not eligible since she did not attend a community college during the academic year prior to transferring. Each year, about 10% of new and renewal Cal Grant awardees are randomly flagged for AB 840 verification of transfer entitlement eligibility. There must be complete verification of the student's eligibility prior to disbursement. Schools must verify that students were a direct transfer from a community college to a BDGI, a California resident at time of high school graduation or on 18th birthday, and a best practice is to collect verification documentation during the initial award year in the event that the student is flagged in the future for AB 840 verification. These are some examples of eligibility documentation that can be requested from students in order to verify their transfer eligibility. Please note, if using a tax return to verify California residency, it must be from the year that the student graduated high school, or if not a high school graduate, the year that they were 18. And remember, the G6 transfer entitlement form is required by the student. However, this does not satisfy verification requirements. Community college bachelor students are eligible for the E2 Transfer Entitlement Award as well as the Middle Class Scholarship. Schools must notify CSAC of all CCBA students who meet E2 or MCS criteria for manual award processing. In this next section, we will discuss competitive Cal Grant awards. Competitive Cal Grant awards are for students who do not meet the entitlement criteria and have the minimum GPA for their program met. With the passage of the state budget at the end of June 2021, community college students who apply by September 2nd, who would previously have been considered for the competitive award, can now be processed for an entitlement award. As a result, the number of competitive awards have been greatly reduced from 41,000 to 13,000. On the right-hand side, these are the 7 indicators that are used to determine a student's score and subsequent ranking for the 13,000 available awards. Competitive recycle is the process of recycling competitive awards that were unpaid to initially awarded students for one reason or another. Once recycled, these awards are offered to the next cohort of eligible students with the goal of issuing all the awards in order to ensure that as many students receive payments as possible. Please report payments in a timely fashion in web grants and customize your roster to identify unpaid students at your site. Additional programs are available at the community college level, and these include the Student Success Completion Grant and the California College Promise Grant. The Student Success Completion Grant became effective in fall 2018, and it is awarded to California community college students who collect the Cal Grant and are full-time students. Students are required to enroll in 12 or more units, meet both college and federal satisfactory academic standards, and be exempt from non-resident tuition. The award amounts are a maximum of $1,298 annually for 12 through 14 units per term, and a maximum of $4,000 annually for 15 units or more per term when enrolled at a California community college. The requirements include attending the California Community College, receiving a Cal Grant B or C award, maintaining a minimum of 2.0 cumulative GPA, having sufficient unmet financial need, maintaining federal satisfactory academic progress standards while enrolled, being exempt from non-resident tuition, and maintaining full-time attendance. In regards to the California College Promise Grant fee waiver, there are 3 types. The first one, CCPG-A, is for students who are currently receiving some form of public assistance. CCPG-B is based upon the current household size and total 2018 income for the students and/or their parents. The income standards are provided by the State Chancellor's Office. A CCPG-B may be awarded based upon the income and household size information provided on the FAFSA or DREAM Act application. The CCPG-C option is where a student must demonstrate at least $1,104 worth of financial need in order to qualify. There are 3 basic Cal Grants. Here are the maximum amounts for each Cal Grant depending on which school the student attends and which type of Cal Grant they are eligible for. At a community college, a student's Cal Grant A is put on reserve until they transfer to a four-year school unless it is a student with dependent children or now a foster youth student, in which case they could receive an access award of up to $6,000. Cal Grant B is available at any eligible school but only pays the access award of $1,648 in the first year. After the first year at a four-year school, the Cal Grant B will pay both fees and access. The Cal Grant C is for vocational or technical programs at a California community college or a nonprofit or for-profit technical or trade school. Please be sure to visit our website or watch our video all about the commission programs that are currently available. The California Aid Report is a student's official award notification given to the student in the initial academic year the Cal Grant is awarded. For a high school entitlement award, it is provided after a student confirms the school of attendance. For a transfer entitlement award, it is provided after the student submits the transfer entitlement certification form. A competitive award waits until awards are processed, and the Cal Grant C is after a student is scored with responses from the C supplement form. If an applicant is eligible for both a Cal Grant A and a Cal Grant B, the grant delivery system will award them in the program most beneficial for their school of attendance. For example, a Cal Grant A pays more over 4 years at the UC than a Cal Grant B does. A Cal Grant A is more beneficial at the UC. A Cal Grant B pays slightly more over 4 years at a CSU than the Cal Grant A does. So therefore, a Cal Grant B is more beneficial at the CSU. Students may only change their Cal Grant program prior to their first payment by completing the G10 form, which requires a signature from the school financial aid advisor, certifying that they consulted with the student regarding the change. The financial aid advisor will review the student's financial aid package to see if it would be in the student's best interest to switch Cal Grant programs. Some factors that the financial aid advisor might consider are tuition-only scholarships, tuition remissions, veterans benefits, or other sources of funding. Students who are awarded a Cal Grant C may have been ineligible for a competitive Cal Grant A or B. If a request is received to reprocess for Cal Grant B consideration, we may have already awarded or paid the maximum number of competitive awards. Most Cal Grant recipients are eligible for a maximum of 4 years of Cal Grant benefits. Fifth-year benefits extends Cal Grant A or B for one additional year for students who are seeking an initial teaching credential or who are enrolled in a specific mandatory 5-year program. This cannot be used for other graduate-level courses of study. For students applying for a 5th-year teaching credential program, they must be enrolled in a teaching credential program and have received at least one payment, hold a bachelor's degree, or have completed all requirements for a BA or a BS, be enrolled in an institution approved by the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing with 15 months of the end of the term in which a Cal Grant payment was received, submit a FAFSA or a DREAM Act application, and a Teaching Credential Program Benefits G44 form as soon as possible after completing their bachelor degree and being accepted into the TCP program. They also must not have received or submitted an application for a teaching credential, such as a preliminary or clear credential. They must maintain financial need for a Cal Grant renewal. The question of when to apply: eligible recipients should apply for TCP benefits as soon as possible after completing their bachelor's degree and after being formally or conditionally accepted into a teaching credential program at an eligible institution. Students who are in a mandatory 5-year program can apply using the G42 5th-year benefits form. Their school of attendance and program must already be listed on the application form. So far, we have discussed the process to apply and receive a Cal Grant as a new student. In this section, we will discuss renewal students. In order for a Cal Grant recipient to be a renewal student, they must have at least 10% remaining eligibility, have all terms satisfied with the payment transaction, have a current FAFSA or DREAM Act application on file, filed before year-end reconciliation, and meet the Cal Grant financial requirements. When the change occurred in law that requires all renewal applicants to meet income and asset ceilings, we started seeing renewal students that had been initially auto-accepted for Cal Grant B and qualified for Cal Grant A start switching from Cal Grant B to Cal Grant A. This is because they failed to meet the lower income asset ceiling of the Cal Grant B in renewal, but still qualified under the higher income and asset ceiling of the Cal Grant A. This is the only allowable instance in law for switching between grants after the student has already received award payments. There are some renewal exceptions. Any recipient who is ineligible for a renewal award during the prior year due to exceeding the income or asset ceilings or not demonstrating financial need will be eligible to receive a renewal award if all eligibility requirements for renewal are met and they have remaining program award eligibility. Please note that the program eligibility will be reduced by one full-time equivalent academic year. In this example, a student was awarded a Cal Grant A in their first year at college because their income was below the ceiling. In the student's first year, they attended college full-time and they used 100% of their 400% four-year eligibility. However, in year 2, they were made ineligible because their reported family income from the prior year rose to be above the Cal Grant A ceiling. However, since the student was still enrolled, they used another 100%. Then the family experienced an economic turn for the worse, or there was an increase to the Cal Grant A ceiling once again, which then made the student eligible for their Cal Grant. So the student was renewed, but their eligibility dropped another 100%, and the student was left with 200% eligibility. This is what the student's award summary screen would look like. In 2017-2018, the original award was auto-accepted for the Cal Grant A. In the following year, 2018-2019, the student is ineligible for renewal due to income and assets being over the ceiling. For 2019-2020, the student regains their financial eligibility and the automatic renewal exception is granted. If corrections need to be made to award or withdraw students, schools must submit a G21 grant record change form. When submitting financial changes which result in making a student ineligible, reverse payments prior to submitting the G21. For entitlement applicants, appeals to award will be received through June 30th of the award year, and you must perform financial corrections for ineligible students on the ICER, and CSAC will reprocess the student with the new transaction. For competitive applicants, you will perform corrections, including financial changes and education level, on the student's ICER prior to application processing. No corrections can be made after award selection. If you need to correct a student's award status, please submit a G21 form. These areas are what may be changed on the G21. They include income and asset verification, financial need changes, expected family contribution, high school graduation date that's not in the entitlement range, housing status, education level for initial award year, California residency, and application on hold. Here's an example of a grant record change form. The link to locate the form can be found in the Student Info menu. Institutions use this form to request changes for a student that may affect their eligibility. For example, if a student's file is verified and the financial data is incorrect, the institution will submit the changes using this form. The information in red or in the parentheses is the previous information. The entered information is what is being corrected. When there are changes to ICER data after the student has been awarded, this is where you will report it. Please use the Reason section at the bottom to notate the ICER number for which the information is being updated. You should not submit a G21 if you need to withdraw a graduated student. Instead, you will use the SR adjustment code on the online roster. If you are requesting withdrawal after reporting IG in error, then you can request reinstatement and then submit the G21 with corrected income or financial data to withdraw the student. If a student is not eligible for transfer entitlement, you can report IT on your roster, and for verifying education level, that will also be verified on your roster. For professional judgment on a competitive awardee, you'll want to make corrections to the student's application before the C1, C2 award cycle. For withdrawing ineligible students after payment or adjustment was already posted, you can back out all transactions before submitting the G21 form. Now we will talk about non-traditional terms. While schools with traditional term schedules disperse based on enrollment status at census, some schools do not have traditional terms or a census. For these schools, Cal Grant funds can be dispersed once the student has completed half of that term or payment period. A school policy must define payment periods and term completion, as well as when half of the term has been completed for payment purposes. Some schools require students to attend full-time all the time. In this first sample policy, a term or payment period consists of 3 modules, and students are eligible for payment once they have completed at least half of the term, defined in school policy as completing 2 out of 3 terms. In the second sample policies, students can be paid at the halfway point of that term or payment period based on the number of days of instruction. We know that the Institutional Participation Agreement, or IPA, requires payments to be reported for every term of the academic year. And since the Cal Grant roster is laid out in a fall, winter, spring, summer format, this schematic shows the academic calendar of a non-traditional school that uses rolling starts to define Cal Grant terms. At this school, there are 3 payment periods or terms in the academic year: fall, spring, and summer. And a new track begins each month continuously, also called rolling starts. Now we will talk about clock hours. The Commission follows the federal definition of clock hours. Recent changes that have been approved by CSAC management is that 1 semester unit is now equivalent to 30 hours of instruction, whereas it used to be 37.5 hours. Also, 1 quarter unit is equivalent to 20 clock hours of instruction, and it used to be 25 hours. To determine enrollment status of half-time, 3/4 time, or full-time for payment purposes, use the following calculation to convert clock hours to semester units. Add up the total clock hours for the term, and then divide that number by 30 for a semester school or 20 for a quarter school. For example, a student enrolled in 450 clock hours for the fall term at a semester school would be enrolled in 15 semester units and is considered full-time. Just like how the full-time payment was calculated, the same calculation finds this student to be eligible for payment based on 3/4 time enrollment. Now we will review school responsibilities. This table shows the Cal Grant monthly checklist for the academic year running from July 1st to June 30th. In July, on the 31st, it is the annual deadline to submit and renew Web Grant System Administrator Access Request Forms and the confidentiality agreements. In addition, the fall Cal Grant payment roster will open. On August 31st, that is the deadline for the California License Exam reporting, and also in August, the Cal Grant Fall Term Advance is processed. For September, the deadline for year-end reconciliation for the prior award year happens, and you can utilize the monthly payment activity and reconciliation reports to complete that deadline. And then in October, it is the deadline to update the college cost estimate screen for the upcoming award year. December 31st is the deadline for SB 70 reporting of enrollment, persistence, and graduation and job placement, and also salary and wage information. In January, the spring Cal Grant payment roster opens. Then, March 1st is the deadline to remit interest earned on Cal Grant funds for the prior calendar year, and also the Cal Grant spring term advance is processed. Then, in June, the Cal Grant renewal award cycle runs, and the summer Cal Grant payment roster opens. The Cal Grant Weekly Checklist includes reviewing the Accept-Reject report, working your roster with the weekly cycle which runs over the weekend, identifying and claiming Cal Grant awardees, using the Award Extract report, submitting school change batch uploads, completing verifications, including clearing any holds and flags, and completing education level verification and the AB 840 E2 verification. Ongoing requirements also include reconciliation of Cal Grant funds, which the frequency will depend on each school's capacity, but at a minimum once per term. Please engage with us on social media where we post important updates and deadlines for students and schools. Thank you for watching this video of the Cal Grant overview portion of the regional trainings. If you have any questions, please contact school support by phone or email.